What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. On this episode, we are going to cover the over 1 year review. I've done another previous review on this kayak. I will post that video at the end of this one. That was a 6-month review. This is like a 15-month review. So this will probably be the last one of these videos for the Nucanoe Unlimited. But this is over a 1 year review, any more pros and cons. And on this episode, we're also going to walk around and kind of do a brief overview of the things I have changed since the last episode, and also just a brief walk around and how I kind of have everything set up. So let's get into it. So after 15 months of owning this kayak, I'm going to talk about a few cons. There's very few cons to this kayak. I've used this kayak in so many different ways between fresh and saltwater. I just previously did a float on the Flint River, which the river was running really, really low. And I basically had to drag this kayak and all this gear down the Flint River for about 14 miles. So it took a beating. And overall, I'm going to take you down underneath here real quick. Overall, it didn't turn out that bad with the scuff marks underneath here. And that's pretty much all I had. I just took a knife here and cleaned up the edge. But really, the back of this kayak is what took brunt of the dragging because I was dragging over rocks. But as far as the cons, we'll get those out of the way. And it's the same cons as the previous video that I posted. The only two cons of this kayak is the finish of the seat, which I could clean this up a little bit, but this is from using in salt water. It starts to pit the aluminum. Not a big deal. And the only other con is the wiring access plates. You can see right here, it's got a little bit of an arch to it. And that's just kind of being from, it's from being warped, basically, being out in the sun and the heat and the pressure on it. Now, Duke from Catch says he's coming out with aluminum versions of these wiring access plates. And he showed me a picture of it, and they're still not on the market on his website. So I don't know what the deal is. I know he's really backed up and he's, having a hard time keeping up with everything. But that's the only two cons, guys, of this kayak. You'll get a little bit of pitting in the aluminum on the track if you use it in salt water a lot like I do, and a little bit of, pitting on the seat. And then the wiring access ports have a little bit of a bow to it. But for the most part, and after 15 months, I get very, very, very little water inside the hull of this boat. And what I normally do is after I use it in salt, I kind of put fresh water in it, inside of it anyway, and just kind of rinse it out. And I just take a little rag and wipe it out, and I kind of put the kayak on an angle so it all comes to the back access port in the back here. And I just wipe it out. But as you can see now, it's nice and dry inside there. So another thing I'll do is a little bit of water I get underneath these wiring access ports. And the only reason I get water underneath these inside the hull is because I have holes drilled through them, because I previously had a switch here for my navigational lights, and I'll talk about that briefly. And I have a hole here because I used to have the navigational little LEDs on the face of this, so I needed to make a hole in this access port to get access to the back side of the wires on this. But besides that, if you don't drill any holes and underneath these access ports, you won't get any water inside your hull. And if you do, it's like I said, it's very, very little. And what I normally do after I rinse it out, or if it's just in fresh water and I get a little bit of water back here, is when I get home, I'll open this hatch up and I'll just let it sit for a few days, or really to the next week till I use it. And by then the water is outside, or not, there's no more water inside the hull of your boat. So it gets very, very little. That's the only two things. And that's pretty much what you hear across the board with the Nucanoes, is these wiring access ports being a little bit of warped. And if you drill holes behind it, you get a little bit of water in your hull because it warps a little bit. So that's really not a big deal. And the seat itself, once again, you could take this off if you wanted to, the seat itself, and just clean it up and repaint it and all that stuff if it really bothers you. But after 15 months of hard use, this kayak, I pretty much try to keep it clean as I can. I don't take care of it as well as I probably should, but I do give it a cleaning every now and then. But you can see the deck pad, none of this is all still on here. None of it's peeling up after 15 months, and everything else has been working with no problems whatsoever on the kayak. So normally I have an anchor in here, but I just didn't throw it on for the video. Actually, I will probably throw that anchor on for you and show you how that thing works real quick. Let's start doing a walkthrough here, and I'll talk about how I have it set up. And if you watched the first video where I went into a lot more detail of any cons or whatever, you can just go back and forth. But since that video, I have added the gear pod. And inside the gear pod is where I keep an extra Torqeedo battery, because I like to have a spare Torqeedo battery just because I run really fast from point A to point B. If I do have a problem with one of my other batteries, I have a spare battery which basically has all the internals to it anyway. So inside of here, besides the battery, I keep a first aid kit. Inside this Milwaukee bag, I have a spare prop for my Torqeedo, the wrench, and some other multi-tools to do any repairs. Keep some dude wipes in here, bug spray, sunblock, headlamp, some straps, toe straps, some extra tie wraps, and I have 2 Nucanoe batteries. And these Nucanoe batteries, these little 10 amp hour Nucanoe batteries, is which runs my navigational lights and my fish finder, which you can see here. Now, I used to have a switch back here when I had just the little Yak Power bullet diodes up here, the green and the red. They worked just fine, and I used to keep the wiring, the battery for that. I had the switch here, and I used to keep the battery in the back hatch. Where I fish, I have a lot of boat traffic, and those lights worked, but I wanted to be seen a little bit more, so that's why I went with the Yak Power strips. And it's better to basically put all your power and everything in the gear pod, because you can remove this gear pod and everything can be stored away if you're staying at a hotel, etc. Plus, these Yak Power strips, being as long as they are, I'm a lot more visible on the water. Basically, all my power, besides my Torqeedo battery that I run primarily, is underneath my seat. All my batteries and my power is in this front gear pod, and with just 2 thumb screws I can remove it, disattach the cables, and pull that whole thing off and put it inside of inside my truck, inside of a hotel, etc. So that's one significant change. So I used to have the navigational lights here. I moved them to the gear pod, and I actually got the gear pod to store additional equipment, tools, etc., and all my power all my battery power that powers everything. With the Torqeedo, I don't have to have a big, 50 amp, 100 amp hour battery. I just have the Torqeedo battery. So it keeps my other electronics and everything very easy to power. That's why I use the Nucanoe. Now, I could just take one, 20 amp hour, 30 amp hour battery and put it in this hatch and do both my navigational lights and my fish finder. But I like the Nucanoe batteries because they're small, they're sealed, they're basically pretty much watertight. You can put them in water, they can get wet, and you don't have to worry about the thing shorting out. That's why I like to use those. Now you can also get the Y splitter for these Nucanoe batteries and parallel them together. And you could just have 20 amp hours out of 2, or you could just buy one 20 amp hour and put the Y splitter on there just to run, basically run your navigational lights and your fish finder off of that. Now, over time, I'm probably going to make this, change this fish finder out to probably a 9-inch. I may get a 20 amp hour battery then. I didn't add a switch to this time for the battery, for the navigational lights, because it's just a matter of coming up. I can, lean over my hatch and just separate the battery from the power, or from the lights, and they'll be off. I'm an electrician, so the less things you have, the less switches and stuff, the better you are just to wire them directly into your batteries. Not saying the Yak Power switches are bad, but over time, people have problems with switches failing because it's just another point where the power runs through. So I keep it simple. Direct battery to my fish finder, direct battery connection to my navigational lights, and it's just done with just a simple plug-in from your Nucanoe batteries, and you're done. So that's one big significant change, adding this gear pod, because originally I bought this kayak for a tandem setup for me and my son, but overall I just use a different kayak because I like keeping this set up for my fishing activities as a single person, and I just use another kayak for me and my son. That's one good thing about the Nucanoe Unlimited, is because you can throw, and the U10s, and I think the Flint and stuff from them too, is you can throw tandem seats on this because everything is mounted on the truck. Another change I did since my last video, I did a homemade version of like a crossbar to put my fish finder on there and stuff, but I got the Boondocks one. I was with Jeff on a trip one time. He's like, hey, you want to try this out? I said, sure. And I kind of like the Boondocks crossbar because now I throw, which I don't have on here right now, this is one area where I throw another set of track packs from Yak Attack and over there, and that basically holds my hard baits and my terminal tackle between either 2 to 3 to 4 track packs on these bases. It keeps it very simple and keeps it right in front of me. Then obviously right here in the middle is my fish finder. I can reach it really easy from my seat. You may say, well, that looks pretty far from your seat. It's so simple to lean forward. It takes, when you're in your seat and when you're in the seat of a kayak, it's really not that far to lean forward over what it looks like on video. This is not too far from me. It keeps it right in the center. And that's all I need, just to be able to do my side scan, see structure, and the depth and the water temperature. Then over here, which I haven't really been using lately, I have a little setup here, and I rest my Yak Attack leverage landing net, and it rests right on top of the gear pod. And if at the inside my gear pod, I just take the net off this here, which rests on here, and just move it out of the way, get into it, and put it back. But lately, I haven't been fishing many tournaments, so I really don't care if I lose a fish right at the boat or not. So I haven't really been running the net as much. It's just one less thing on the boat and one less thing in the way. Then here, I have 2 roto grips. This is where I keep my catch measuring board, which once again, I haven't really been carrying much lately because I haven't been fishing many tournaments. So it's just one less thing in the way, but I leave them set up on here. And once again, being this is on track, you can just unscrew these and take them off if you don't want them, or put them back if you want them. Besides the last video, one other change I've done is I've added... Are we done blowing the horn? You sure? Are you done now? Okay. One other thing I've added to my kayak since that last video is I actually added the short stack on top of my black pack. At first, I'm like, do I really need that much storage? Because with the hatch, I run very light, and my tackle, like my drinks, my coffee, my water, any other gear, my dry bag where I keep my phone and everything in, pretty much stays inside of here, and most of my tackle always stayed up front, and I had some soft plastics with me that I kept in here. But now that I added this short stack, I'm super glad I have, because what I do is up in the short stack on the top is this is where I keep things I want to get to really quick, which is my soft plastics. Any additional terminal tackle, I usually keep my bug spray and my sunblock up here when I'm out on a trip. And anything else that I want to get quick access to is right on the top of this, and it works out so well. I'm so glad I added the short stack to the top of the Black Pack Pro. You can see here, if you didn't watch the other video, this is where I keep my rear GoPro. This cable right here plugs into, you can see right there, a little USB-C, which I got 2 of them on this port. I'm trying to do this one-handed. Either way, it plugs right into there, and the side I just can't see it right now because I closed the door to the shop so it's not so bright of the sun on there. All right, so that plugs in there, and that's what powers my GoPro. And inside of this lower part of the thing is where I keep 1 more Nucanoe battery. So 3 Nucanoe batteries runs all the power on my kayak, and it's just wired into a USB-C power supply basically, and that's it. So that's what powers my rear camera. I can also charge my phone off of this, and I can also run my chest-mounted camera if my batteries run low by plugging in another cable, which I keep with me, and I could run around and kind of keep myself wired in on my seat, which you think it may be in your way, but it's actually not. So that's really the big changes from that last video, but we'll continue to walk around here, and you can see, if you haven't seen the other video, what I've done. I use the recessed or retractable Nucanoe mount for my transducer, which it just literally, I'm sitting on a table right now, but you just pull this out and it just drops down for my side scan. So that just goes through your one scupper hole right here in between the seat. You run the wire up, kind of tie wrap it, and it goes into my gear pod, which I have the Yak Attack pass-through wiring things. That's where my transducer cable goes in, coils up, tie wraps, and keeps it slack, and then comes back out and connects to the back side of my fish finder. So I have that. I'm not sure if I had that in the last video, the first video, but that's one additional, because I used to run the cell block, and I used to have the transducer basically sitting off the side here that you just kind of put down in the water. The one negative to that is when the transducer is on the edge of the cell block from Yak Attack and you put it into the water, when you're running 5 miles per hour, now that you have that really tight, it wants to kind of kick up. So you are getting somewhat of a reading, but not exactly what you need. Another thing that works really great with the Nucanoe Unlimited is the Nucanoe foot control steering for your rear mounted motor, whether it's a Torpedo or a Newport vessel or even a Bixby. It's good having this foot control steering. Once again, everything mounts on the track, and this is the older style mount for the motor. Actually, now the new mounts actually attach to the track as well. A new set of plate that comes around attaches to the track, which probably wouldn't work with my setup because I have my my own mount I did for this, but I could probably readjust this if I had to. But the new mounts on this grab the track on each side, and also a new mount here just for more support, more stability, because people have cracked their rear transom on this with so much power. Now, I've towed with this many people at full speed, and knock on wood, I haven't had a problem with my rear of my hull cracking at all. So it's been working out so far, but the new style does grab this. But that's just a simple 1 screw. And with the new ones, you just have 2 more thumb screws on your track and just a steel cable that runs up to your foot control. And this is track mounted as well. And all you got to do is you turn this back and forth, you know, with your foot, 1 foot steering, which is awesome. And you can see back there, it's turning my motor. It works so damn well. And I love that everything on this kayak, which is great about this kayak too, is that if I change hulls, everything is mounted on the track, nothing's drilled in. I can just remove some thumb screws and put onto a new hull and start all over again, nice and fresh, and have it done in a few hours. Very simple, guys. Especially once you have your setup done and figured out how you like it, you just replicate it onto another hull. Once again, some thumb screws and you move on to the next thing. So one thing you see back here, now that I mounted the anchor back on here, is I use the grappling style, which you could use the ball style, but I like the grappling style because I'm in a lot of sand, I'm in a lot of mud, so I like the grappling style. But you can see it clears with the foot control steering. I clear my anchor because I made this anchor mount, which I have a separate video on. I'll see, maybe I'll put this video and the first walkthrough video at the end of this video. So I made this mount, so as you can see here, it sits on, it runs on an angle here, but I made a nice little taper to this to run this straight out to keep my anchor straight and to clear my motor when it turns and when I release this mount. So, you know, I barely anchor anymore. I used to anchor a lot when I used to take photos when I'm in a lake, but all I got to do on my thing, as you can see, is just release that quarter turn and the anchor drops. And just to retrieve it, you wind it up. I'm going to do this one-handed, so it might be a little shaky. And then it retracts. So I love the Anchor Wizards just for the cost is cheap than buying a power pole, and then I can anchor in any depth of water because I have 100 feet of cord. So I'm never going to be anchoring in 100 feet of water. I think the deepest I've ever anchored in is about 20 feet anyway, but that's why I like the Anchor Wizard setup, because you have such a wide range of depth that you can anchor in. A power pole, you're limited to like 8 feet, you know, so I like the Anchor Wizard mount setup for my anchor. As you can see, I just use the built-in handle / paddle holder. I usually tether this paddle off with the Rogue leash when I'm out in the water, because when I'm taking on big chop, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll get the water comes up, hits this blade, and it'll just pop my paddle off. So I always have it tethered. It happens every now and then, maybe like once every other trip if I'm not paying attention and there's a lot of chop. So I tether my paddle off with the Rogue anchor or leash, power leash, whatever you want to call it, with my paddle. And that's it, guys. So it's just very simple. Everything's mounted on my track. Here's my Torpedo throttle. It's right at the perfect angle for me. Torpedo, same thing. It's over a year old. I did a separate video on that. It's been lasting great. Had my fish finder up there, and I keep myself a pretty open deck to be able to measure fish and be able to walk around, stand up, spin around, come up to my hatch and get access. So after 15 months, I've made some final tweaks. This will be my final setup. I've said that numerous times, but I have it figured out now. For me, I think the gear pod, when you buy a Nucanoe, is one of the items that you want to buy because it's worth the $200 to be able to put all your gear up here. There's a gasket built into this. Everything stays dry. The gasket's right here. You can see the little rubber seal. You got a lip here, so you never get water inside here. You may get condensation when it's hot and cold and all that stuff, but that thing stays dry, the hatch. It's a good place to mount your navigational light, whether you use a strip or you use a couple pucks or just one little LEDs, and you can keep all your batteries up inside of here. The Boondocks crossbar is a great place for staging. They also make rod stagers. I just recently used this down the Flint River, and I took my fish finder off and I just used some roto grips for some rod stagers. But Boondocks makes some rod stagers too, a little cushion. You can just rest your rods on there when you're floating down the river. I kept my gear pod on, but you can see it's just a very simple setup. Even though it's got a lot of stuff onto it, it's still very open deck feel, and it is an open deck setup to be able to carry my gear. When I went down the river, I carried a dry bag back here, 50. I carried a 50-liter dry bag back here with my sleeping bag, my mattress. I could keep a tent back there, but my buddy carried my tent for me, but that would all fit right back here because the tent rolled up into, like, it was a one-man tent. It rolled up really tight. I could keep that all back here for your overnight camping trips, and then you have plenty of room to really store things. You could also mount some clips on here if you want and do like a bungee over the top of this if you have to carry more gear, but you got plenty of room to carry gear on your Nucanoe Unlimited. And then obviously I totally forgot, I got the Boondocks landing gear. I have an install video of this. Pretty much everything on this kayak I have an install video for, including the motor. Just go through my channel and you'll find it. The only thing I didn't do is an install on these nav lights and really my fish finder, but you can see everything just came into the gear pod. and 2 Nucanoe batteries. You just follow the instruction on this. You just drill a hole and mount that in there, and there's some two-sided tape and a little screw at the end for that. Sorry about the difference in thing. I got the door open a little bit so we can see in here a little bit better. And then I just used the Yak Attack power pass-through things and brought everything in for my transducer. And then your navigational lights, like I said, you drill some holes. I do have some sticky backs. I don't know if you can see that, where the tie wraps run through. They are holding the wires back. You probably can't see in there. Let me see if I can zoom in. Right there. You can buy these at Home Depot. We use these in electrical panels too. And just like tie wrap back the wires. But I got some of those. I cleaned up with some rubbing alcohol and just cleaned the plastic surface, and those are just 3M sticky backs, and you can tie wrap wires to it. But you can see the wire coming through for my navigational lights there. You just drill a 1/2-inch hole for these Yak powers, and they thread in. They are a very simple setup. And then they have the Nucanoe, actually they actually have the adapter for this, for the Nucanoe end of your battery. It runs back. I have everything tie wrapped. But the Yak Power, you'll see there's a Nucanoe battery attachment thing. You can buy that stuff on Amazon too, Yak Power stuff. It's all primed, so you get it really quick. But this is a very simple install, so I didn't do a video on this install. But everything else, guys, I have an install video for your major components on this kayak on my channel. So if you're looking for the install of a stern-mounted motor from them, I have the install video of how I did this little plastic plate for my anchor to keep it straight and clear my motor when it turns. It works out fine. Even when I'm powering through and backing up with that cord and everything, it stays clear in my prop. Everything's been working good, guys. So after 15 months, it's been a flawless kayak. Here's our last walkthrough. We got our flag up there, which is our visit pole from Yak Attack with the anchor light. I run that early in the morning. Got my boom stick for my rear mounted camera, Blackpack Pro with the short stack, Anchor Wizard with a grappling anchor, Torpedo 1103, Boondocks landing gear, some track packs mounted on that, the Boondocks slotted crossbar to mount stuff on, which works out great, and then the gear pod with some Yak Power navigational lights, guys. It works out freaking awesome. So if you guys are on the market for a Nucanoe Unlimited or a Nucanoe U10 or a Flint, whatever, reach out to me or your local supplier, because now I'm also have my own kayak shop called The Real Kayak Shop, which I'll leave a link in the description. If you're in the South Carolina area, I'm a mobile kayak dealer that will set these up, rig these things up, or give it to you butt naked with nothing on it, where you guys can do your own accessories, and I'll deliver it right to your door right in South Carolina. After owning it for 15 months, we've beaten the crap out of this thing, and it just keeps ticking with no problems whatsoever. If you guys have any questions of how anything was mounted, just drop a comment, and I can send you a link to that video once I find it in my stuff as well. I do have a separate playlist, I think, for Nucanoe Unlimited. So if you go to my channel and go to Nucanoe Unlimited, I think all the install videos are on that playlist, and you can find it for everything I've done on this. And this kayak has been working awesome. I used to have the Hobie, and I still have that, which my wife's used, but once I changed over to this and got motorized, I will never go to anything else. I love this setup because everything is mounted on the tracks. There's a lot of other good kayak companies out there and manufacturers, but as far as being everything mounted on the track, the Nucanoe Unlimited makes it so simple for you to change, do-it-yourself stuff, and just have a blast and set these things up as simple or as elaborate as you want. That's it, guys. This thing is going to be, has been an awesome kayak. It's over 15 months old, with me using it in fresh salt, being dragged down rivers, taking on major waves, and feeling super stable. And that river float was the first time I've ever been down a river, and even though the river was low, there was some little areas where you still had some, rapids and stuff. I felt super stable. And this one time I got caught against the rock, because that was my own fault, and the water was pushing against the kayak, and it starts to take this, and the water starts coming in and wants to flip the kayak. I was only in a couple feet of water. All I had to do is just jump out, pull it out of that little hole I was stuck in, and I was fine. So I did not tip it. And that's my main thing. I don't care about going in, especially when it's hot out. I just don't want to break any gear or lose any gear. But this thing was super stable, and I just had one incident where it was my own fault getting stuck against the rock. So overall, the thing is super stable, whether you're in big water, on a river, and even somebody who's unexperienced at river fishing. I did great with it the first time going down, as big as it is. That's what makes it super stable, 41 inches wide. So it's been great, guys. So thanks for stopping by. It's just a simple walkthrough. The only cons I had was just the warping on the wiring access plates and a little bit of pitting on the aluminum on the seat. Two minor issues that don't affect anything whatsoever. There's nothing wrong with a little bit of water in your hull. It kind of cleans it out, especially if you have to do some salt and just wipe it out or open the hatch, like I said, and it just dries out. So thanks for stopping by, guys. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments. You can reach out to me. You can reach out to therealkayakshop.com. Like I said, I'll leave that link in the description. My phone number's out there. You can call me, ask me any questions. You can shoot me a text. I am available for you guys. That's why I do YouTube and do these videos. Be safe on the water, and I'll catch you in the water. Drop a comment if you have any questions.
Thank you.